What does it take to create and develop leaders within your organization? On today's podcast, we're going to talk about leadership mindset with Jill Phillips. Welcome to Lift Your Future, a podcast that teaches you coping skills through stories, methods, and proven techniques to improve relationships and outcomes in your personal and professional life. I'm Nicole Winkler, a licensed therapist and executive coach. On this podcast, we'll share relatable life experiences designed to help you grow. I will provide easy, practical ways to develop thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to impact your life, both personally and professionally. My goal is simple: to help you lift your future. Thank you so much for being back with us today, Jill. I know we're going to talk about leadership mindset today. And so what are the pillars of success?
The pillars of success. And now I'm not sure if this was from our conversation before that I was referencing in this way, or if I may reference a few different pillars and then move that over here too. But when I would talk about the pillars of success, I kind of gleaned this insight from one of my fantastic coaches I've had in my past too. And that is the two pillars of success really are defined by compassion and belief. And oftentimes I'll ask someone, what does that mean to you? Mm-hmm. Compassion. And it's about, grace, forgiveness, not letting the inner critic or the inner perfectionist beat up on someone or beat up on ourselves, right? And then the belief is standing in our value and in our truth and grounding in that. And so turning that to someone directly, it's the two pillars of success is your self-belief and your self-compassion, and how gentle and kind are you with your self-talk, mm-hmm. and able to move forward with that resilience factor and having a strong knowing in who you are. And I just believe that sets you up for a really great foundation for success. And so I'm not sure if you're referring to that, or when I talk about sharpening the saw, which are the four pillars that help you stabilize that foundation with your spiritual, mental, physical, social, and emotional care that you give to yourself, and how do you fill your cup. So that's, I think, what I was referring to.
Yes, definitely that self-compassion piece. And I do work with mm-hmm. a lot of leaders that we work on forgiveness of themselves. They're harder on themselves far more than they are on other people. And so it's that forgiveness piece, that compassion, show yourself some grace. And then especially with the pandemic being what it has been, it's not over necessarily, but what we've learned through that, and having to give ourselves and give other people the grace and compassion that we were probably missing a lot in the workplace prior to that.
Yes. Yep. I think there's such a line of balance there too. Compassion is not woo-woo. It's not fluffy. It's real. It's impactful and so powerful when it's really in play. But also, I think I've noticed, at least with some people I've had conversations with, they're afraid that if they are too forgiving, then they're not going to have the work ethic and the efficiency that they're driving for. Mm-hmm. So on the spectrum of that balance between effective and efficient and having a little bit of compassion is what I believe the leadership mindset is about, is how to find the balance, not mean that you're equal in each area, but you're, willing to look at each individual opportunity or each individual conversation and be able to tune in mm-hmm. with the person who is there, because really leadership is about genuinely loving and caring about people. And mm-hmm. if you don't genuinely love and care about people, you might be in the wrong profession if you're leading a company. Now, of course, we're all leaders, in different ways, but to have that genuine love and care about people is just so important. Mm-hmm. What have you found, Nicole?
I've definitely found the same thing, because there are high standards, and that's mm-hmm. how they got to where they are, is having those high standards and really picking apart what was the scenario, what were your thoughts about it, what were your beliefs about it, about yourself, about the team, about the organization, about the industry. I mean, there's many ways to go with that. But then, okay, are those beliefs still serving you? And are those beliefs healthy for you? And what were the lessons learned? The takeaways, what are your lessons, and how could it be even better if you did this even better? What would it look like? How would you process it differently? And that's where the compassion kind of comes into, okay, I didn't know what I didn't know. So now I do know, and going forward, this is what I'm going to do. It's like, yes, you just answered that for yourself. And that was with compassion, and that was with your belief system and really honing in on those things. Because, my belief about myself could be very different than my belief about someone else, my belief about our organization as a whole, or our team, and then the industry and what the industry standard is for each various industry. So I love your pillars of success in that way, with that self-compassion and the self-belief, because self-belief, because that is really ultimately what matters at the end of the day. And being able to go home and know you did a great job, and that, no, I didn't do it perfect. And that perfectionistic part that comes in and says, oh gosh, we beat ourselves up with that critic. But that doesn't do us any good. Really, it does not help us grow. It does not push us to be better than we once were. It's like we stay in the past. And when we stay in the past, we aren't doing anything about the present or the future.
Absolutely. Some of the clients that I work with, that we go through CALM leadership, CALM as the acronym. And may I share a little bit about that?
I would love that. Yes.
Yeah. And I'd love for you to help me expand on what this acronym can mean and how it applies. The CALM stands for, in leadership is coaching. That's, again, the number one skill set of the 21st century, not meaning as a business, but learning some of the coaching techniques to help people. And then A is accountability. And, is it that you find accountable people, or do you hold people accountable? There are some contradicting beliefs on what accountability is and looks like. It's like, can you make someone accountable, or how do you help drive that and find accountable people? And then leadership is the L, and M is for management. And so the leadership, that's about the vision and the influence. And the management is about actually here in the present and making sure tasks are completed and done. And those four qualities right there, the coaching, accountability, leadership, and management, getting those in harmony together, it takes some time, but those are maybe four key points just to check in with, to see who's doing what, how well am I doing, how well is the team doing, so you can move forward in a calmer way. So
yes. Yeah. And so with that, what comes to mind first and foremost is that internal versus external. So like internally, if I decide to make a change, I'm more likely to, if that's what I want, that's what I'm motivated to do, I'm more likely to do that. If I'm doing it for external factors, whether that be employees or an owner or someone else, then I'm not as motivated typically. And with that coaching piece, that's where coaching comes in. And I guess I'm going to speak to that one first because I started there. But, I have people that contact me and say, I need coaching. I need you to tell me what to do. I'm like, that's consulting. And I don't do consulting. I mean, I might say, okay, I'm going to put on a consultant hat here, or I'm going to ask you some questions like that. But primarily what I do is coaching. And so that is coming from within. And in a coaching book that I had read, it had these 3 B's. And when we're in misalignment with the 3 B's, then it shows up in our work and our life. And so those are our beliefs, our behaviors, and our being. How are we being? How are we showing up? What are our behaviors? And then what are our beliefs? And sometimes those are really misaligned. And so if I believe that everybody can learn and I believe everybody is capable, but then I'm seeing, projects not get done, or I have to step in and do something, then my belief system and my being of jumping in and doing it for them is in misalignment. And so that's where coaching comes in too, to have those 3 things streamlined. And with the leadership coaching and the leadership mindset, I think that's really important to speak about and talk about, teach about, and then see how we can apply that to their lives.
Yes. I just, before our conversation today, I was in a coaching session with a brilliant CEO and a big company here in town. And, he's about to have a meeting, lead an important meeting where there are potentially some, big conversations to be had. And, of course, he's working towards setting the agenda for the day and the objectives, and to make sure there's productivity throughout the day. And so to break down kind of what you were saying, one of the questions I asked him, I said, well, what are 3 points of intention for the day? How do you want to show up? What do you want them to leave with? And, what do you want for your time today? And just give me one word. Mm-hmm. And that is really challenging for myself. And I think a lot of other people too, is to boil it down to a word mm-hmm. or a phrase or, okay, maybe a sentence. But, coming out of that, he had so much clarity about that. He wants the day to be highly productive, powerful conversations. And the intention that the energy he wanted to bring to the room was optimism and hope. Mm-hmm. And so now he's going in focusing on those things versus what he doesn't want, which is confusion or he's afraid, I might not lead this meeting very well. I might look, incompetent, whatever could be going through his mind. And now he has a focus point with just finding 3 words. So I like to ask people for that simplicity and clarity, and then put that on a sticky pad, on your mirror and on the wheel of your vehicle so you can see that. And then at the end of the day, the challenge is to look back at the day and find how you were living mm-hmm. with productivity, clarity, optimism. And so that inner critic doesn't, steal the show like you are mentioning and jump back to the past. Mm-hmm. And that's where that self-compassion comes in. And that self-belief is built on that identity of the intention that you set for the day. And so I know he's going to have a great meeting. I can't wait to hear more.
It sounds like
that's just one way to break it down. Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. No, thank you for speaking to that, because that really is when we can simplify things. It's not, we don't have all this other stuff going on. It's like when we have mm-hmm. too many windows open on our computer and it runs really slow. Our processor runs slower the more windows and tabs we have open in our brain. And, mm-hmm. Even our short-term memory, like the studies all show, we can hold 7 to 9 items in our short-term memory at any given time. And they come in and out and in and out. And that's why phone numbers are 7 digits long, because that's what the research said. Any longer than that, we're not going to remember it. So that speaks to having to be more concise and succinct with the information, and gives direction. I hear a lot of direction, and clarity was obtained through that strategy. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Hey, here's a little fun trivia. What is the number 1 most well-known telephone number?
8675309.
You do it. That's right. I just made that up. I don't know if it's really the number 1 most known number, but I decided to ask it and you knew it. So it must be.
Well, and that's when I taught my kids phone numbers when they were young. I did it to a song, to a medley. And that's still, when they say my phone number, they still kind of sing it a little bit when they recite it. Like, hey, we remember things like that. So yeah. Absolutely. Well, and so then the next piece of that is the accountability part. And you said there's kind of, the jury's out about what accountability really is, especially for other people. And so I think that really goes back to the intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation as well. Are we personally influenced and impacted by this? And how do we motivate ourselves? But then being a leader is really, how do you motivate other people to do their best work and to show up as their best self every day for the bigger goal of the organization or the team? And so I think, finding what really motivates employees is important as a leader, because it's not the same thing for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think we're really seeing that with the Great Resignation that we're in right now. Giving people more money is nice. It is definitely nice. But is that what motivates everyone to perform at their highest level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tricky one. And like you were talking about, it's more intrinsic than extrinsic. And that is something as leaders to help them go within to figure out why or why not did that show up. And specifically, if someone has a task or a goal, maybe it's a quarterly goal that is not complete. Well, a leadership mindset is they take radical responsibility. So maybe it's not complete, right? That happens. Mm-hmm. But taking radical responsibility, being a leadership trait, that means that you own it. You say, this was done or this was not done, and here is why, here's the impact it had, versus hiding behind someone else or their excuse or reasoning, that they own that piece of it. And so that's one of the distinctions that I think is important, even when hiring or looking to bring someone to the leadership team level, is not only that they have excelled at a skill set, but they have the leadership mindset, which includes radical responsibility and accountability in that too. And oftentimes I see people they elevate someone to the leadership team based on their skill set in what they're doing,
because they were a great performer.
Yes, rather than how they can really lead with these qualities. So that's why I'm loving this conversation with you here today and exploring what all this looks like or not.
Yes. And something that you speak a lot about, and I've started talking more about this too, is that self-leadership piece, being a really good self-leader. And so would you mind kind of breaking that down a little bit for the listeners?
Sure. I always think to get to know yourself, to lead yourself, and you have to know yourself and lead yourself to effectively lead other people. And that goes to this leadership mindset and, looking at a few of the characteristics or qualities of leaders. And again, this, I know we speak a lot about business and executive space, but leadership is someone in a family who's leading a family. It's someone who's a mentor. Leadership comes in many different spaces. And so just knowing these leadership qualities of the mindset, which is, it's about leaders hone their mindset and they know how their brain functions and operates on, what am I trying to say? On a level.
On a high level, on a...
Yes, physiological level. They understand the workings and the operations of the brain. There we go. And then they understand their emotions and not only understand their emotions, but, as we spoke of last time, have that emotional intelligence, which doesn't mean to suppress and not have an emotion, but it's to actually feel it, but not let it run you. You're able to manage it. And so having those emotional intelligence, having the crucial conversations, being able to be decisive by knowing core values, integrity, and also self-care. Sharpening the saw is so important, to take time away so you can fill your cup back up and refill, refuel, reignite, re-inspire. And all those words start with re. So that means you got to do it again and again and again.
Yes. Right. It's never ending.
It's never ending. It's never ending there. But those are just some of the characteristics and qualities looking at leadership and the importance to give to each one, but breaking them down like we've been doing and understand what they mean.
And to have that self-leadership piece, it's very important to be self-aware. If we're not aware of something, then how can we work on it? And so that's something where I usually will tell clients, and I'm sure I've said this many times before too on this podcast, but if 3 or more people tell you the same thing, it's probably true, or probably at the very least worth exploring. And so that's where I get people that are like, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't know that I came across that way. And people's perceptions are their realities. So if they perceived it in that way, then how can we work with you in terms of your leadership and how you lead and manage people to come across the way that you intend it to be, and not just in the way that you've always done it. So bringing that self-awareness piece to it so you can lead effectively for yourself and other people.
Absolutely. That's a critical piece of that information right there. A lot of owners and even leadership team levels of people, I see, this is from my experience, I'd love to hear from yours too, is that a lot of them have that inner critic and that inner perfectionist, and that really helps them succeed. It gives them the drive to do their work so well but they often don't have that shut off valve where to turn it off or to tune into something else too. And so that can sometimes get in the way. And, even looking at, how to drive performance. This was a conversation I was having earlier with another client too, is they're wanting to identify the strengths and weaknesses, which obviously that's important. And we're able to really step back and be able to receive, that information. Mm-hmm. And also not just the information about our weaknesses, but also receive a positive affirmation and not just brush that off, but really own and receive those, where you're excelling and doing so well with your strengths. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes we take that to heart, the weaknesses, and we want to harp on those, or those who have that optimizer, who is a leader, they're wanting to optimize everything. They're really wanting to drill on the weaknesses, mm-hmm. and to make them stronger. And one of the things that was so intriguing to me about coaching and positive psychology is the power of affirmation. And that is something leaders often don't get, is that affirmation, unless they're doing that affirmative work themselves, mm-hmm. or perhaps with a coach. And it's really important to do that, because what you focus on grows. And if you're wanting to expand your employee performance, yes, there's a time to talk to them about the weaknesses, but if you harp on those hoping they're going to get stronger, you're actually, you're working against yourself, mm-hmm. there, because they're so focused on that, and the brain attaches to what it's focused on. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to see better performance, find ways that you can call them out for living their core values and acknowledge what they're doing so well. And they're more likely to live up to that, and it's going to grow and expand.
Yes.
And that's why I love this coaching space so much. And part of leadership being the CALM coaching, it's affirming and acknowledging. And again, that's something as CEOs or, owners or leaders, we also have to do that work. And it's important to do that just as much as it is to give that. We have to receive and give that here first, so it can flow out to others.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess I have a couple comments about that, because I have seen that show up where now we're focusing so much on the weaknesses that the strengths are muted. They aren't shining as brightly as they were before, because all the effort and energy is in the weaknesses and trying to get those mm-hmm. better. So I actually don't even like using the word weaknesses. I generally will say strengths and areas of opportunity, or strengths and opportunities, because there's opportunity for growth in everything, even your strengths, there's opportunity for growth. And so mm-hmm. I like to frame it in that way, because it is really important for us to know, okay, yes, this is something I can get better at incrementally, but this mm-hmm. is not just a black or white, good or bad kind of tea table here. We're really going to see, and how can your strengths help with those areas of opportunity? Because everybody will do it a little bit differently, and that's okay. And that's a beautiful thing, that we can learn from each other in that way. But that was, one of my comments about that. And then I lost the other one because I didn't write it down, of course, but it'll come back to me, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other qualities and characteristics and something to develop is how to have crucial conversations. Mm-hmm. And what we tolerate, we endorse. And so if we just tolerate some behavior or something, then it just continues, right? And you asked me last time what was one of my favorite books. And so today I have not read the whole book yet. I will. But one of the books that I love is Fierce Conversations.
Okay.
By Susan Scott. And is it okay if I read just a teeny tiny paragraph?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, please.
Right. And you look at this, it's like fierce conversations. Fierce. Oh my gosh. That sounds a little scary. And people are scared of having hard conversations mm-hmm. For multiple reasons. But here's what I love about this, what this says. It says, but a fierce conversation doesn't fierce suggest menacing, cruel, barbarous, threatening. sounds like raised voices, frowns, blood on the floor. No fun at all. In regards to the thesaurus, however, the word fierce has the following synonyms: robust, intense, strong, powerful, passionate, eager, unbridled, uncurbed, untamed. In its simplest form, a fierce conversation is one in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation and make it real. While many are afraid of the real, it is the unreal conversation that should scare us to death. Whoever said talk is cheap was mistaken. Unreal conversations are incredibly expensive for organizations and for individuals.
Wow. I have goosebumps.
I do too. Yep.
That is so powerful.
It is so powerful because, and it's the courage, as Brene Brown says, to step into the arena. Mm-hmm. We're never going to accomplish anything if we don't have a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes we're too triggered in our own feelings and emotions about something to really, go have that conversation that could really lead to another outcome. Mm-hmm. Right. And in the absence of information, our minds make up stories.
Very
and think about
ones.
how many stories, whether they're true fact or fictional, have come into play and really cause, the company to lose time and money. And most importantly, for us to lose connection to people that we probably really do genuinely love and care about, so I just love that book.
Well, I'm going to pick it up. I'm adding that to my Audible account after this. Thank you for that recommendation.
Yeah.
And I agree with you completely. And we know that vulnerability brings people together, that it actually connects us and makes us more alike and understand each other more than, surface level conversations. So yeah, having those tough conversations is very important, and doing it in the right setting and working with words. So I do work with people about the words that they choose to use, because if we are very extreme with our words, you always do this or you never do that, that is very much, people get defensive when they hear that. And so, I have noticed frequently that this has happened is, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is a softer way, but still very real and raw way of confronting some behavior that you're seeing or not seeing. And so, words are important, and talking is super powerful. So thank you for that. I know we had also talked a little bit when we were talking about this leadership mindset about going in and yes, we could make changes, right? So somebody told us we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, and it'll be better. But if we don't actually believe in those changes, if we don't actually believe in it and the outcome of what's going to happen, those changes generally don't last very long. They're very, I don't want to say temperamental, that's not the right word, but they're short-lived. What is your experience with that?
About, state that one more time.
Well, the belief systems about if we believe it and we believe in this change and we're on board with it, then, generally that's going to be a long-lasting change. But if we're doing it because somebody told us to do it, then we can do it. We absolutely can do it, especially if it means keeping our job or not. But it generally is not going to be a long-lasting change.
So the first thing I just have to tell you, what comes to my mind when we talk about this, is trying to convince my kids it's really a great idea to clean your room. and so I have, different kids, and they organize the room differently. Some are super organized, some are just a total mess, some's an organized mess. And, I'm trying to tell them the importance of cleaning the clutter so they can focus on the other things, right? But, until they believe that themselves, they're not going to do it. And it's just mom nagging them is, how I interpret that. So how many times are we nagging versus helping them understand the importance and value and benefits? So like whenever they're running late now as they're older to work and they cannot find their keys, they can't find the other shoe. Sounds like it would have been a great idea to have the room picked up or to have, something organized. And so that's when it seems to start catching on. But, it also doesn't work. I've learned to say, I told you so, it's just important to say, hey, well, there you go. Now you understand, and acknowledge how they've made that progress from within. So hopefully other things don't take as long as it has been and not all of my kids are on board yet, by the way, but that's what it made me think of. And so going into organizations, hoping that they're going to have the change, as leaders, as someone who's taking initiative and hoping to influence, it's important to help paint a picture with an example or a story, so they have that mindset shift, they have a paradigm shift, and they start seeing things in a different way and the impact it could have. And so here's, for example, when I do some quarterly strategic planning with different companies and teams, not only are they reporting every quarter, on their 90-day goals that they've accomplished or not accomplished, they say, they have or haven't, but it's, why have you, or why not? And maybe it wasn't all that important. What was the lesson learned here? And, with that being complete or incomplete, tell us what the impact of that, that made. Like, tell us about the ripple effects of that getting complete. And someone else is like, oh, I had no idea, but that played into me being able to do X, Y, and Z. And oh, thank you. And I'm glad you shared that. I didn't know that. So it's communicating and helping them articulate the impact that has made. And I think from there, they have to, reflect and process and think inward, and to have a different understanding, which can start to create those paradigm shifts, the way that they see things. And, as Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things around you begin to change too. So I love to share that quote with people.
I love that. Thank you so much. And that jogged my memory I've worked with organizations that say, I don't care what accounting is doing. I don't care what sales is doing. I don't care. It's like, okay. And I love how you do that, where, okay, did we make this? Did we not? How did it impact all of you? Because it does impact everyone. Every piece of the puzzle is important. Every person is important, and what they do or don't do has a great impact on each other and themselves and the organization as a whole. So really bringing that, from a big picture perspective all the way down to personal, like, what can I do? It's like empowering employees too. I think that's really empowering if leaders can bring that out in each person.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I talk a lot about beliefs because I think our beliefs, shape our thoughts, and then our thoughts shape our behaviors and our feelings that come from that. So what are some ways that you have worked with leaders to change their belief systems?
At the very beginning, just to break down the context and the definition of a word that we're talking about. It sounds really simple, and it really is simple and easy, but just to ask them, I'm trying to think of an example here, but if you, even whenever I spoke about the 2 pillars and I said, what is belief? Well, what do you mean by that? Give me an example. How does that affect your life? And just start asking them and becoming curious about questions. That helps them think again, intrinsically, and reflect about what they really are thinking. And from that space, you hear more. And then you can become curious about that question. And so I think there's just a lot of genuine curiosity that, as a coach, is what I try to facilitate, their own wisdom from within. And then they say it and I repeat it back. And oftentimes there's, something from what they say, or maybe I'll tweak something just a little bit in my language for them to hear the same concept back. And they're like, or they can see where they're, in opposition with their beliefs, or they can clarify something with, in simplicity and focus on that moving forward. So I would say that's probably one of the ways, just defining the word and thinking through what they're really, slowing down to speed up really is what you're doing.
Yes, which is so critical and important. And with beliefs, I like to, our beliefs are what we believe about ourselves, other people, and the world or the industry that we're in as well. And so I like them to make a set of those beliefs. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about other people? What do you believe about your industry? What do you believe about the world in general? And a lot of times those are very idealized beliefs, the first go through. It's like, don't tell me what I want to hear. But that's what we do generally. Like, oh, this is, I do, do I really believe this or not? So then I ask them, where did that belief come from? Let's go back. And sometimes it's my kindergarten teacher, did this or said that, and this is where I learned it. And sometimes it's like, well, just because it just is. Well, it isn't just is. Your brain is so amazing, but you've had reinforcement for this belief system over time. And so if you want to continue with it, if it's still serving you, that's a question I ask too. Is this belief system still serving you? And how is it still serving you? And if we want to change it and make adjustments to it, that's absolutely possible. But we have to be really honest about what our beliefs are. So we can really, that radical responsibility piece coming back in, take responsibility for what our belief is, good, bad, or the other, and really honing it into who we are now and who we want to be.
Yeah. I just love helping people tune into the power that they really have within them, with the ability to gain clarity and the words that they choose to use, and how they can focus their mind by, number one, understanding it, the mind and the emotions, and then, having a few focal points and holding your intention and energy in that space really creates change. I mean, again, it's simple, but it's not easy because it takes a lot of practice. And going back to the words re-inspire, re-energize, reignite, is doing it over and over and over again. And, even the best of us, out there will get stuck again and in a funk. And that's where I feel like the whole concept of sharpening the saw, one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits, is so important to remember. How are you, again, filling up your cup? Physically, what are you doing to move the energy? What are you doing for exercise? And mentally, how are you growing and learning still? That's, again, part of leadership mindset is growth mindset. We're learning new skill sets, and which I've been going through some learning new skill sets, which is technology, and I'm working to reframe how I feel about that I'm becoming better friends with technology, but I really am learning new things. And, whether it's technology or something maybe a little more serious, on the other side of a breakdown is as a breakthrough. And so every time I feel like I'm in some type of pain, I know on the other side of that is some growth and something new that's about to emerge too. And so again, getting that body moving, the mind moving, and having those social connections were made, of course, for connection and conversations, and having those needs met. And spiritually, taking time to really step away and do something that fills your spirit, whether that's being in nature. It could also be connecting with friends. And some people like to retreat and, have no one in their energy space. They need that quiet time too, which we all really do. How to be still and know. It's that knowing that comes when we can silence our mind a little more from the monkey mind and the chatter that's going on. So we can really step into that inspired best self. And taking time to do that, it's like, where does that show up on your calendar? If you value yourself, and even if one of those are your core values, where is that showing up on your calendar each week to take time, to get back into your best self so you can serve from that space, because your energy is going to be contagious. So those are just some of the things that come to my mind, talking about what leaders do. And it's a journey, it's a practice, so it's that practice makes progress, and it might be a millimeter and then a centimeter. And it's fun, it's about enjoying that journey too.
Yes. And knowing that there's something on the other side of that, because everybody is going to face difficulties, no matter with ourselves, with other people, with our families, with our friends, with our organizations, and being able to really one, take that time and say, what was I really upset about, or what really bothered me about that? And that's why I think coaching is so powerful too, because I'll have somebody come in, and I have a coach too, and I think it's really important to have coaching. Like, why is that really important to me? Or why did that really hit me the way that it did? And generally speaking, most people don't make the time and space to really look within themselves, like, what was going on with me then? And we just kind of say, well, I was tired, or I didn't get a lot of sleep, or I haven't had 3 cups of coffee yet, or, whatever, but we kind of excuse that away instead of really digging into it. So taking the time to self-reflect, and whether that be journaling, whether that be talking to somebody that you really care about or that really cares about you, and getting those deep conversations. Meditation is great for that, taking walks, being out in nature. But yeah, when are you scheduling that time? Because my motto is, personally, and I know a lot of other people too, if it's not in the calendar, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that is, how I live my life. And a lot of the leaders I work with are very busy from this to that to the other. And so where is that white space? Where is that time for you? And how to prioritize that and protect that time, because it is just as important as every meeting that you have or every other project that you're working on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's even more challenging just because no one's there really looking over your shoulder. It's about you being accountable to yourself, because you know that you matter, and that motivation can come from inside and outside. Knowing that maybe the result you're wanting is if we're talking in the business world, for your business to grow, that might even cause more intrinsic motivation, because taking care of yourself and becoming the best version of you is going to ripple out to everyone else, because as the leader goes, so goes the rest of the organization. There's so much truth in that. But that also is just as pertinent within parenting, making sure parents are on the same page as much as possible, or at least how they're going to present themselves, to their kids. And so leadership is leadership, and it's self-leadership is where all of this begins, which is why I love this conversation. And we both kind of love learning about it and geek out over it. So I appreciate this so much.
We do.
It's a good reminder for me too, just to even be talking about it here with you today.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate every conversation I have with you. And when you called and said, I want to do leadership mindset as a podcast idea, I thought, oh, this is wonderful, because you have so much experience in this as well. But I also know that you practice and you work on practicing it and really implementing that into your own life, because how else do we show up if we're not doing it for ourselves?
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I don't know if I've asked you this before.
Oh, boy.
So what are some of and I know you do, and I've heard them, but I'm not sure do you have a daily routine or ritual, or do you just plug in different events, or what does your self-practice look like?
So I am a journaler. I brain dump first. So I got into bullet journaling. I don't know if you're familiar with bullet journaling. Several years ago, and I loved it because everything was all in one place. So I would have a calendar, and I like my phone calendar, of course, but I like to also see it in writing throughout my week. And then I also have a journal that I always kind of journal in, and then I'd have a to-do list. So I'd have 3 or 4 separate notebooks. And with bullet journaling, it's all in one spot. So I found a format that I really liked on Pinterest and played around with it a bit to get it how I wanted it. So I have my schedule for the day, what that looks like. I have to put in drive time, because otherwise I forget that I have to drive somewhere, or drive home, and I overbook myself or overcommit. And so there's that, or phone calls, and I set my intention for the day the night before. So what are my intentions for tomorrow? And then I'll review those intentions, remind myself to live within those intentions, which honestly, when I started doing that, it was every 2 hours, I had a alert go off on my phone. What's your intention for this hour? What's your intention for this hour? To remind me to go back and what was my intention, because the day gets away from me. And then I do a brain dump. So all the ideas or all the things that are swirling around my mind, I get it out. It's not in any particular order. There's work stuff, there's business stuff, there's kid stuff, there's relationship stuff, there's friends, there's, all of it. But I just put it in a brain dump and then I organize it from there. And then for whatever it is that I want to, it's kind of, each of those are like little bullet points. And then from there, it's like, okay, what do I need to process? What do I want to expand on? And then I'll write about whatever that is to give me clarity. And oftentimes I walk away having a great deal of clarity. And at the end of the day, if there's still something, if I'm laying in bed and I can't fall asleep, then that's what I'll do. I'll pull it out, like, what's going on? Let me process through that. So that's kind of my way of doing that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the bullet points there.
Yeah. It just helps me get it out. And then how do you do it? I'm curious now. That was a great question.
Yeah, I'm a heavy journaler too. I did Dear Diary when I was little, but really that's a journal, and it can be just a clarity break book, however, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Now I do call it my journal. And for me, I just let the pen flow. Just, I know this is my space, and the pen just flows to whatever comes to mind. And over the years, I do place the things that are on my mind. If it's, hey, here's the things that are exciting, or, and I am acknowledging, I learned to put my own acknowledgements in there too. And I also have written in the past about, I still do, about things that are heavy on my heart. But what I have worked towards over the years is not just to write any complaints and frustrations, excuse me, but to really shift that to what I do want. So I'm able to process the feelings and the triggers and the emotions, but here's how I want to feel. Here's what's important. So I even reframe it in the journaling, and that has helped so much too. So I journal. I do add usually on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, I set with my calendar. I plug my workouts in the morning. And then when I get up, I can have my routine of my water, my supplements, and which I only take a few, but I do my supplements. And then I know what I'm going to do that day. So I look at my calendar and I plug in all my events, like you said, the drive time and everything in between. And then I leave space for fun. So Mondays, I try to do my Monday meetings, which this is like a fun meeting for me. Yeah. And then Fridays, my flex Fridays. So I can, if I have someone who needs to reschedule, or if I just want to unplug that day, if I want to think on business that day, I love doing that too. So I work towards that, but I kind of work towards all these things with just practicing. And there's days I fall off the horse and I don't go to my workout class. Yes. I might miss like a week even, right? But it's just getting back on and restating my intention, again and again and again. So yes. Yeah, it's the supplements, it's fueling my body, it's taking, some type of fat with my coffee in the morning and getting the exercise in, and then starting my day. And I don't do this as much as I would like, but I am getting better at having a little sticky note and writing the intentions for, I call it segment intending, so my intention for this morning is, or my intention for this client's time, how I want to show up for them and hold the space for them, or my intention for our call, or what we're doing right now, setting those segment intentions, and then even intending after I get home this afternoon to unplug. Today I want to unplug and I want to be present with my family. And tonight I'm making dinner, and that's maybe a treat for my family. My husband's better at making dinner these days. I'm so grateful. But too. Yeah, that's my intention. So, yeah. Yes.
But if we lose our intentions, and this goes for personal life, professional life, then we're just responding. We're not being proactive. We're not ahead of ourselves. And it's like, okay, no, I am in control of my day. I am in control of this hour, how I think, how I behave, how I process information, and I'm in control of my emotions. I'm going to have them, but that doesn't mean that, that they're going to disrupt my entire day. And I can be in control of them. I can process them at a time that it is appropriate, not necessarily in the middle of a meeting with someone. And so I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to cover today about leadership mindset?
Oh, I think we covered a lot of great nuggets there about, coaching, accountability, leadership versus management, and the emotions, and taking time for yourself, and genuinely loving people, and that growth mindset. And one more thing is the humble confidence, I guess. That's something maybe briefly is, it's important to have a level of confidence and esteem about yourself and self-belief. It's very important how you see yourself. But there's a difference, of course, in being arrogant and confident. And, some of the leaders I've worked with, they're always afraid that they're going to come off as a jerk, or else they have to be really super nice and not really get what they want. But there's a level in between being a jerk and being just a pushover, and that's being courageous and confident and clear, and being able to coach, which is that intrinsic motivation that you can help people find. And so that humble confidence, I think, is also a great quality to embrace as a leader and leadership mindset too.
I love that. And I probably frame that in just a little bit different way. Living in your ego or not living in your ego. When you're living in your ego, it's for other people. It's for how they look at you and how they see you. It's not truly who you are. And so if you're living within your ego, generally that's when people come across more arrogant. If you're living within yourself and your belief about yourself and your confidence, that is where your confidence comes through. And your ego does not. So
well said.
Same thing, but I just frame it a little bit differently. So thank you for that other little nugget for me to use.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I super hope that I get a phone call from you on the way home today with another idea. I very much enjoy having you on, and all of our conversations. I learned so much through you and from you. So thank you very much.
Oh, I feel the same way. So I love our conversations. I've already had 5 other topics come up. So I will be calling you.
Perfect.
This is always so fun and such an honor to be invited into this space, your space. And I appreciate you so much, and your courage and your wisdom, and just really sharing from a heart space. And that is what I've always known you to be, and who you are, is that you just come from a beautiful heart space. So thank you.
Well, and thank you again. I appreciate you more than I could put into words. So you are more eloquent with your words with that, but I echo everything back to you, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Right. Will do. Okay.
All right. Jill Phillips with Strategic Solutions, and we will have your information in the show notes.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.